There was signs last season. I thought he did very well after the Newcastle games. Come back from that, comes back, gets his name cheered, puts in some good performances. But I just go back. Was it St James's where he got that injury?
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season. And I just wonder if that will look back and go, that was the end of that.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe, that is Jay, and today we are talking Benjamin Sesko. I want to talk about him as a player at United, but also I want to talk about what we're going to do up front now that he's missing for a month. We're going to look at who should play there, against who, and how we can expect to play with Benjamin Sesko out with this knee injury. Now, the first thing I think we should say, Jay, it's lucky it's only a month, because knees usually start at a month and go to career ending, don't they?
Yeah, it can be like a bit of a game changer that for you, can't it? You do fear the worst when you hear it's a knee injury, but everyone who's reliable is saying that, look, it's up to a month. So in an ideal world, obviously an ideal world, he won't get injured, but hopefully it won't be as long as a month. But I think, let's just say a month is what everyone's sort of putting it around, and hopefully he can come back and almost picks up where he's left off, because people have been hating on him. But I like Benjamin Sesko, and I think he's had a little bit of unfair criticism. You look at the Spurs game, obviously, a bit of a nightmare. Not all his fault. I mean, getting injured isn't his fault. The fact we were that 10 men because we made all our subs wasn't on him. It was just bad luck. Did miss that chance, so you could even argue then it was a great tackle by Van der Ven. So that wasn't one of his better games, regardless of the circumstances. I think Forest, there was some criticism there. But on the whole, I've been impressed with Sesko. And look, 2 goals isn't like, wow, amazing, but at least he's got off the mark in the Premier League, which some players struggle to do, and some players have still struggled to do after big moves from Germany. He's done that, and I think if you look at the level of his performances, I've been impressed. I like what I see, and I think there's a justification for United buying him. I think you can see why we bought him. I'm not saying he's already fulfilled his price tag, he hasn't, but you can understand why we got him. I'm not looking at him going, what's this guy about? He looks class. And I think he will be a very, very good player for Manchester United for years to come.
In terms of the type of player that he is, because I know, people don't want to compare him and Højlund or say that they're similar or that, they're struggling, whatever. But in terms of just on paper, they are toward the same end of the striker spectrum. If you look at someone like Chicharito, Hernandez or Aguero, they're nothing like that.
No.
They're tall, physical, athletic, sort of heavier strikers. Now, they're not necessarily the best footballers in the world, but not that they're bad footballers, but they're not get the ball, dribble through 7 or 8 players and put it in the back of the net kind of strikers. And we knew that. Is that the type of striker that you think will work in this system? Just fundamentally, do you like the type of player that he is? 6'5", quick, covers ground well, leaps well, hits the ball hard. Do you think that we need that type of player?
I do, and I just wonder how sort of much Ruben Amorim look at this as this is a different option for me. This is a chance to change it. Because you go back to that Liverpool game, yes, I think he can work in the system, but also for that Liverpool game, he said, right, we're not just going to hoof it up to Sesko, we're going to focus on winning the second balls. Drop Sesko, and it worked. Yeah. Then other games he started, and it's worked with him in the team as well. Look at the Chelsea game, for example. I know he came off at half-time, but he was instrumental in Chelsea getting that red card because it was his flick on that Mbumo got onto that led to Sanchez getting sent off. So I do feel like he can fit in the system, but I also think he adds another dimension, because if you've got, say, someone like Brian Mbumo or Mateus Cunha up front, or you've got Benjamin Sesko, that's completely different. That's a different sort of question that the defender's got to deal with, and that's a different style for United almost from the front three. And I like the fact that you now look at it and go, okay, we can mix it up a little bit. I think when all's said and done, eventually he will play nearly every game for Manchester United, but he at least brings something different to the table. And yes, I think he can fit in the system. There was questions like that about, is he going to get the service? Is this system set up right for a striker like that? And I think it is, and I think he can do.
I think his numbers, his shots per game is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think that he's had a couple of times I can just see him in my head where the ball is either sort of gone slightly too far of him, so when he's having the shot, it's kind of skewing off a little bit at the near post. He's had a couple of those. Yeah. And then obviously the one against Tottenham where, ironically, he didn't let the ball go far enough across him and allowed Van der Ven to get in there. Obviously, I think he might have already been injured before that, as I said at the time, but we've not had confirmation. But it was just a little mistake.
Also, as well, we were over on tour. And Mbumo was playing. Cunha got minutes. Sesko didn't. Yeah. Sesko had to wait. Yeah. Now you might go, well, who cares? Well, obviously that matters. These guys were getting games against Premier League opposition. We played the Premier League series, which you might go, that's a load of, who cares? But it was against Premier League teams that put out pretty strong teams as well, fielded most of their strongest players. So it was a good sort of preparation for your United career. So the likes of Cunha, the likes of Mbeumo, who've already played in the Premier League, obviously, it's not like they need practice of playing against Premier League opposition. But in terms of a pre-season, that's ideal. Sesko comes in a little bit later, and we've seen it. I've seen this argument being made with Carlos Baleba that he didn't have much of a pre-season. Some people who are pushing back on the criticism he's been getting, going, hang on a minute, he's not had quite the pre-season he should have done. Well, Sesko's coming in from a different league, doesn't have the pre-season that some of his teammates have, and has still shown quite a lot this season anyway. And I think sometimes that just gets ignored.
Yeah, I think with pre-season as well, it's one of those things that people are quite happy to sort of throw out. But whenever you speak to former players, they all talk about how important it is.
Of course.
They literally, that whole, it's basically, become a cliche at this point, but like, you get your fitness for the season in pre-season.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the human body doesn't work exactly as simply as that. But footballers really care about pre-season. They take it seriously. They talk about how much fitness you get during those weeks that you sort of almost can't replicate once the games start. So I do think that does make a big difference. Just generally then, because obviously we've had, there's been this sort of public pushback. I think Gary Neville in particular has been sort of a bit critical of him. Without talking about any other perception other than your own, are you happy with him so far?
Yeah, I am. I mean, obviously, it's not gone ideal. It's not all perfect.
Yeah.
But he does have a perfect start. Manchester United's few and far between. But I like what I see.
Yeah,
I think I look at it and go, there's a good player there. I understand why we've bought him. I think he's got a good relationship with his teammates. I think he links up well with his teammates. I didn't understand what Gary Neville was on about when he questions his link-up play. I think it was Gary Neville that did that because, for me, I think his link-up play has been good. And I think he adds value to this team. And you can see that with the likes of Mbeumo, with the likes of Sesko, with Mercedes Cunha, and with some of the other players we've got, players like Ahmad, like Bruno, like Mason Mount, there's options there. There's a threat there that perhaps we haven't had in the past. And you look at last season where you had, was it Højlund, Zirkzee, Chido, Garnacho, Anthony, like it was underwhelming.
Yeah,
and even though all those players, do have talent, the numbers weren't great, the performances weren't great, and you just kind of felt as a fan going into games just without that belief and expectation. Now I look at it, and if I see Sesko starting, I think, yeah, good stuff.
Obviously, he is out for around a month. We need to work out who's going to play instead of him. I know he doesn't start necessarily every single week, but he started most of the games over the last sort of couple of months. This is pre-AFCON, which is a big thing. He's going to be back before the lads go over to AFCON, most likely. I think the only one that might cross over would be the Villa game. There's a possibility, but I think he would have to have been out for 5 or 6 weeks for him to miss that one. So you'd hope before Mbeumo and Ahmad and Mazraoui go, certainly Mbeumo and Ahmad in particular, as far as attacking talent goes, he will be back. But in the meantime, we need a front three, and maybe obviously depending on where you want to put Ahmad in all of this, we can mention the wing backs as well. Who would you play, not necessarily every single week, but as your new first choice attacking lineup for United while he's out?
I think if it was up to me, I'd probably mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
Look, I know it's not ideal because it's slightly different, but I'd look at this as an opportunity to maybe just push Mbeumo a little bit further forward.
Yeah.
Have him like leading the line. Bring Bruno into one of the 10 roles. I think Bruno as a 10 is just unplayable. I think he's just a phenomenal player. I think you look at those first couple of seasons in particular where his numbers were off the scale. If you watch those games, I know you had like Martial, you had Greenwood, you had Rashford, but a lot of those games, when you looked at where United were, where the players were actually on the football pitch, Bruno was like almost like a 9 at times. He was just so far forward.
Yeah.
We saw what he did at Wembley as well when we played City, when he literally was a false 9. But as a 10, I just think he's different gravy. And I think he's done well in his deeper role. I'm not saying he hasn't. I think some of the criticism of him at times, like it has been almost for his entire United career, has been a bit OTT. But I don't think he's as good as a deeper midfielder as he is as a 10. I think as a 10, he's unreal, and I think as a deep midfielder he's still very good, and his numbers are still pretty impressive. I just think you lose a little bit from him. So I'd probably put Bruno as one of the 10s. I'd have Cunha as another 10, and it's difficult because I feel like a little bit harsh on Mason Mount because I feel like he's done well this season. I do like Mason Mount, and we're seeing more of the player. Still question marks about fitness and injuries and stuff. You were talking about this the other week, and you say maybe the club are being a bit cautious with him. I think he needs a season where he's playing a lot and showing us what he's about. It's his 3rd season now. But I'm probably being a little bit harsh on him, but he's a great option to have off the bench. And I'd stick Mainoo next to Casemiro. The manager says if Bruno's not there, it's Mainoo. He's more or less said it's one or the other. I think you could push Bruno further up and put Mainoo next to Casemiro, and you might go about the legs or whatever, but Bruno goes wandering, and he asked Mainoo to maybe sit a bit deeper alongside Casemiro. I think that could work, and I think the manager said it could work, and I'd like to see at least get a bit of a try, because we've not really seen much of it, have we, so far this season?
No.
And I think if you look to that front three, and Bumo, who a lot of the time is leading the line anyway, we've seen him sort of do it at Liverpool, we've seen him do it in other games. Cunha, who's been impressive, and we know what Bruno can do as a 10. I think as a front three, that's solid, that's strong, that's scary. And I think in midfield, Casemiro and Mainoo, I think that works. What about you?
No, I like that. I think I would do it slightly differently. And again, this isn't every single week. But for instance, let's look at the Everton game at home against a team that I think we should be beating.
Yeah.
I'd bring Mount in. I'd just do a straight swap, Sesko for Mount, and those front three can kind of do a little bit of rotation and a bit of roaming.
Yeah, that's a shout.
Probably Mount on the left more often than not, maybe Cunha down the middle, but certainly Cunha and Burmo can, you go right, I'll go centre, depending on who's where and who's tracked back across, which, if you're tracking your man through the middle, a space might open up, etc. And that's just because, even though I value Kobbie Mainoo's future at Man United, probably over Mason Mount's, to be honest. But I think what I've seen this season, the most recent evidence, Mount has played more and been more effective and more relied upon than Mainoo has. And I think for that reason, I would give him the nod. But again, it pains me to say there's a chance for Mainoo to get in here, and I'm not taking it. But I just think Mount's just been really good this season. So I feel bad leaving him out.
Yeah, and people want to try and pit players against one another, don't they? It's like either or. And it's probably not even either or with Mount and Mainoo. The manager's probably got other ideas. But they've both shown signs this season. Mount more so. I thought Mainoo did well in the derby when he came on. I thought he was very good for that half hour. Good. And I think it was the Burnley game, if memory serves, where I thought he had a decent second half when he came on for the second half. But Mount's had a better season this season.
Yeah.
I think Mainoo's probably, has had a better Manchester United career. But Mount this season has looked very good, and it was unfortunate that he's got injured again and that he's not played consistently. He's barely been getting off the bench recently, has he?
Yeah, since he came back from that knock.
And it's sad for him, because I think he'd actually started and kept his place, which he could have done.
Yeah,
I think he'd be going to the World Cup.
Yeah,
I do, because he started very well against Arsenal.
I still think he could.
He's not, but I hear you.
It's going to have to be consistent, like you said.
I just wonder whether, when everyone's fit, is there still a place for Mason Mount? Might be. I don't know.
It's March, isn't it? The next break.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a really good run at it now.
Yeah.
Where everyone starts going, actually, Mason Mount's back to where he was against for Chelsea, and he's had he's been good all season. He needs to build that narrative, doesn't he?
And look, he's got a manager that knows him, Thomas Tuchel,
100%.
like who won't have any
First
problem.
name under the team sheet under Thomas Tuchel.
Got the assist in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
Obviously, I played at Tuchel rates, so you suspect, and I've got no evidence, but his kind of logic would dictate that Tuchel almost looking for an excuse to bring Mason Mount back at a player he knows and likes and has trusted and has delivered trophies for him in the past.
And all indications are as well that he's a decent lad around the dressing room.
Everyone.
People talk highly of his personality, don't they?
So there's an outside chance. You got to remember that it was around this time in 2023 was it, that Kobbie Mainoo made his Premier League debut, and ended up going all the way to the Euros final.
Yeah. So
someone like Mason Mount, who's played a lot for England, won trophies, played under this manager, then he's got every opportunity. So listen, if it is Mason Mount starting in the as part of the front three, and I do think one thing that Mason Mount offers that others don't is he will drop deep as well, and he will help the midfield, and he will get stuck in a way that some of his peers don't. I like that about Mount, and it's such a shame he had this injury and missing games, because now you've got one game a week as well. I think Mount's missed the last 2 games where he's barely played, and that's a shame for him, because he needs to be getting back to playing regularly, and he was doing that earlier on in the season, but obviously it's not happening for him at the minute. So look, I'm not hating on Mount, and if he starts, I ain't got a problem with that at all. It's interesting that neither of us have mentioned Ahmad.
Oh, well, okay, there's another player I want to mention after this. I just think Ahmad at right wing back works really well. I mean, Everton are a big side, they're a physical side, so maybe you look at the header at the back post against Forest, where Ahmad was beaten in the air, as a moment where you go, we don't want that to repeat itself, and is it more likely to happen against someone like Everton? Maybe. But in terms of creation and build-up, I think you lose so much when Ahmad isn't there.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because he has played as a 10 this season. He's one of the few that has.
Yeah, I mean, the manager obviously likes him there. Amorim won't forget last season as well, where Ahmad as a 10 got him out of jail a few times, and You go back to the Southampton game, you go back to the Etihad. I mean, he's almost a striker at that point. But further up the pitch, the business end of the pitch, he's more or less kept Amorim going at times last season, when even though it was a disaster last season, it would have been a lot worse if it wasn't for Ahmad popping up with some very, very important goals. So the manager might look and go, yeah, and despite what a lot of the fan base seem to think about Dalot, where everyone's turning against him, the manager still likes Dalot.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the manager's going, look, Dalot wing back works for me. Ahmad as a 10, I'm all about it. Just for me personally, I like Ahmad as a wing back, and I feel like he's getting to grips with that role a little bit more. I know he's been moved, and he got moved the other week, but he can play in that role, and yes, it's not like he can't grow. Like he might get beaten in the air in certain circumstances, and that's something that him and his teammates have got to figure out when it's certain situations where he might get left with a player that's taller than him. You've got to work out how you can accommodate for that. But on the whole, I think Ahmad at wing back with someone like, whether that's a Bruno, whether it's a Mount or whoever, or Mbeumo in front of him, it's effective, isn't it? It's dangerous, and I think if you've got Dorgu on the left and Ahmad on the right as your wing backs, then that's decent. I think that's exciting as a fan. I just look at it and go, yeah, man, I think we've got goals in this team. I know you might question it a little bit defensively, but I don't think defensively that bad. And they both got the very least the athleticism as well to get themselves out of trouble at times when they might get caught
willingness
out.
and work rate as well. They're up for it.
Yeah, they do, aren't they? And I think I go back because you highlighted it and you were right to the Fulham game. Ahmad looks a bit lost. Even against Grimsby, something wasn't right. This is a player that we love and has been mint since Amorim came in, since towards the end of Ten Hag, and under Ruben Nistelrooy, I thought Ahmad was a shining star, and then it's all of a sudden you're like, what's going on here? Is he just struggling to get to grips with this role? However, more recently, you look at him, you go, okay, he's linking up well with Mbeumo, he's getting used to his role, he's doing very well. Yes, there's a little couple of points where he could have done better or whatever, but on the whole, much improved. So it'd be a shame now to go, okay, right, forget that, you're number 10. I think keep him where he's playing.
Worth mentioning as well, there was a family bereavement in there as well, wasn't
That's a good point.
I'm sure, you don't just get over the week after.
No, because I think he had one last season, didn't he? Was it the Brighton game where he scored, but he played when I think again, it was a bereavement. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that can affect you in so many different ways.
Yeah, massively. And you're getting used to the people you're playing against alongside as well, within Burma in particular. One name that we literally haven't mentioned that doesn't seem to get much of a mention at all anymore is Joshua Zirkzee. Yeah. Now, he's someone that played over 40 games for United last season, cost 40 million quid, or 40 million euros, I think it was, and is sort of fallen so far down the pecking order that he almost doesn't get mentioned anymore. I know he has played a few minutes this season, but certainly, even less than the likes of Mainoo and others that we talk about not being favoured. Zirkzee even below that. Where are you with him, and how do you think he's getting on at the minute?
I mean, he's made it pretty clear he wants to go, hasn't he, in January. Yeah. I think everyone we value as a reporter has kind of reported that and said, look, Zirkzee wants to go to the World Cup with Holland, still feels like he's got a chance if he can go somewhere in January and get minutes. Now, I know there's been similar reports of Kobbie Mainoo. I think the club are more keen to keep Kobbie Mainoo, at least permanently keep him. Yeah, Mainoo, as far as we know, wants to stay permanently at Manchester United. He wants to go out on loan, but only on a temporary move. He's not looking for an obligation to buy or anything. He just wants to try and get some minutes and trying to get in some of Tuchel's squad. So there is similarities there. I just think with Zirkzee, I mean, he's barely playing at all, is he? Like, me and you were going over it on Paddock Live the other week, and he is getting minutes, but not many. It's cameos, and it's like...
And it's because he's... I know he's not a number 9, but he's the closest thing we have to a number 9. Yeah. And even when Sesko's not playing, he's still not playing. No. Like, he's literally just like we need something else. Okay, he is there, because we haven't got that many attackers. And then at some point you want an extra one. That's the only time he's getting minutes, which it's not much of a sort of, admiration for him.
No, let's have it right. We bought 3 players and put them in front of him to get into the team. Yeah. Like, yes, he's not an out-and-out 9, but he can play in that role. Sesko comes in. He's more of a 10. Cunha comes in. And Mbeumo. Yeah. And also, to add sort of, salt into the wound, Mason Mount comes back into the team and does really well. So you've gone from almost having no one in front of you to having 4 players in front of you. Yeah. And it's not ideal for him. There was signs last season. I thought he did very well after the Newcastle games, come back from that. when he obviously got booed and he not stormed off, but he went down the tunnel, obviously upset. Comes back, gets his name cheered, puts in some good performances. But I just go back, was it St James's where he got that injury? Where he went on that run and got injured towards the end of the season. And I just wonder if will look back and go, that was the end of that. Because he never really, or since then, hasn't had much of a chance. And I think had he stayed fit, I think there's a good chance he would have started the Europa League final. I think the manager was really starting to like him. But injured, there's never a good time to get injured, but specifically for him then, that was a terrible time for him to get injured.
Do you think he's done at United? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny with Zirkzee because you watch him and there's a lot to like there.
Yeah.
Like, he's good on the ball, he's entertaining, he's strong as well, he's not someone who gets bullied. And you think, yeah, there's a player there. I just feel like we've got better options now.
Yeah.
And I think like last season was probably when he had to prove it. I know it was difficult because he'd not been here long, it was his first season, but he had to sort of show us what he's about. Like you say, the 40 appearances. I know they weren't all starts. What was it? 4 Premier League goals, was it?
Yeah.
Which it's not great, is it?
No.
And
there wasn't like
circumstances.
15 assists either. It was just sort of low numbers, wasn't it?
And you can look at it where you can. And I know there's a lot of fans who like Zirkzee. Maka raves about him, and I get it. I understand that. He's a exciting, likeable type of player because you're like, look at him, he's meant on the ball, silky, he's been compared to Berbatov. I mean, he is a different type of player, but the difference is Berbatov, got the golden boot one season. Zirkzee ain't going to do that, and that's not his fault. I think, he had season at Bologna where he scored like 12 goals or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's not a prolific goal scorer. He's not that guy. He does bring something different than all the other players I've mentioned. I just don't know if he's got enough. I mean, I think best case scenario for Zirkzee is he gets an opportunity maybe off the bench and does something with it and maybe gets himself into that thinking for the AFCON where the manager goes, hang on a minute, I can use Zirkzee when Mbumo and Ahmad in particular aren't available. So that would be the thinking. But I expect him to go in January. I think someone in Italy will want him. Is it Napoli or
a few different clubs?
Napoli love everyone. I might have got that one wrong, but you can understand. He got Bologna into the top 4, didn't he? He was a big part of that under Motta. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to Italy. And it'll be weird because I think people will look back one day. If he went in January and that ended up being permanent, people will look back at Zirkzee and go, well, that was a disastrous signing. Came in, didn't barely score any goals, didn't win out, and left after 18 months. But I think people actually have a lot of fondness for him. Yeah. I think it'd be, I think we'd be like, if he came back to Old Trafford with a different club, he'd probably get a round of applause. I think people would be like, we like this guy. And not all players get that, do they? Despite even players who've got a better record than him. Yeah. So I think
it seems like the sort of signing that's not right, but isn't a disaster. Even though, like you said, on paper it sort of is a disaster. It kind of isn't in real life, which is a bizarre thing. But it's a shame really. But I do tend to agree with you. Right, that's going to be all from us. Get your thoughts in the comments about Benjamin Sesko.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Little plug here. Merchandise. There's a link in the description.
Loads of good stuff on there.
Loads of good stuff.
Including that little piece that you've got on there. Go and check that out. Loads of stuff as well. Also, still plenty of time, but if you want to get Christmas presents and that sort of thing for people, that's the
I might get you
one
one for Christmas.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Can I get the one that just says Paddock on it?
Yeah.
I like that.
I'll get you that.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much for joining us. Get your thoughts in below on Benjamin Sesko and who should replace him in the squad. My name's Joe. That's been Jay. We'll see you in a bit.